Owning your worth is the foundation of building the life you deserve, because until you recognize your inherent value, every dream, every opportunity, and every possibility will feel like it belongs to someone else, and you will find yourself shrinking in moments when you should be rising, apologizing for taking up space when your presence was meant to matter, and doubting your voice when it carries truths that could change your life. And the hard reality is that so many of us learn to measure our worth by external approval, by the roles we play, by the mistakes we've made, or by the circumstances we were born into. Yet true worth is not something that can be given or taken away. It is something that already exists within us, waiting to be claimed, and when you begin to own it, you stop negotiating your value with people who were never meant to define it. You stop settling for less because you finally understand that less is not enough for someone who was created for more, and you stop chasing validation because you realize the power to validate your own existence has been in you all along. And this shift is what makes building the life you deserve possible, because every boundary you set, every decision you make, and every opportunity you step into flows from the belief that you are worthy of more than just survival. You are worthy of thriving, of joy, of belonging, and when setbacks come, as they inevitably will, owning your worth keeps you from internalizing failure as identity. Instead, you see it as part of the process, and you keep moving forward with resilience. And owning your worth also changes the way you dream, because instead of playing small out of fear of rejection, you give yourself permission to imagine boldly, to believe that the desires in your heart are not foolish but guiding lights pointing you toward the life meant for you. And this courage to dream bigger comes from the deep knowing that you deserve not only a place in the room but the freedom to shape it. And when you live from this place of owned worth, you inspire others to recognize theirs, because worth is contagious. It radiates from someone who has claimed it, and it makes others braver too. And so the foundation of building the life you deserve is not about what you do first or what path you take, but about who you believe you are. Because from that belief springs every act of courage, every stand of resilience, and every moment of creation that moves you closer to the life you were meant to live. Small choices made with intention shape your future more than one big leap, because it is in the quiet, ordinary decisions of everyday life that the direction of our journey is determined. And while dramatic shifts and bold leaps may feel exhilarating, it is the consistent pattern of small, intentional actions that build the foundation for lasting change. For every morning you choose to rise instead of giving up. Every moment you choose honesty over avoidance, every act of kindness instead of indifference, and every decision to stay committed instead of drifting away creates a ripple that, over time, becomes the current carrying you toward the life you want. And this truth is often overlooked because we are conditioned to celebrate the big milestones while ignoring the tiny steps that made them possible. Yet it is never the leap alone that transforms a life. It is the thousands of unseen decisions that precede it, the hours of practice, the moments of discipline, the times you stayed the course when no one was watching. And these choices, though small, are like seeds planted into the soil of your future, each one carrying the potential to grow into something much greater than itself. And when made with intention, they begin to shape not only your circumstances but also your character, teaching you patience, integrity, and resilience. And the beauty of small intentional choices is that they are always within reach. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need to be extraordinary. You simply need to be willing to choose what aligns with the person you want to become. And when you do, the accumulation of those choices builds momentum, creating a life that reflects your deepest values. So while one big leap may move you forward in a dramatic moment, it is the steady rhythm of daily intentional choices that ensures you can stay there, grow there, and sustain the life you work to create. Because transformation is not a lightning strike, but a sunrise, gradual, consistent, and certain. The kind of change that cannot be undone by one setback, because it has been built layer upon layer, choice upon choice, until it becomes who you are. Courage means creating, even when the outcome isn't guaranteed, because true bravery is not found in the certainty of success, but in the willingness to risk failure for the sake of honoring what matters most. And when you decide to create, Whether it's a dream, a relationship, a project, or a new version of yourself, you step into a space of vulnerability where there are no promises, where rejection, disappointment, and doubt all hover close, and yet you choose to act anyway, and that choice is the essence of courage, because it says, "My desire to live authentically outweighs my fear of unknown." And this kind of courage reshapes your life not because it ensures the outcome you want, but because it transforms you into someone who trusts themselves enough to show up fully, someone who values expression more than perfection, someone who would rather try and stumble than silence their own voice. And in the act of creating without guarantees, you discover freedom, freedom from the need to control everything, freedom from the weight of others' expectations, freedom from the lie that you are only worthy if the end result shines, and instead you begin to measure worth by the willingness to try, the persistence to begin again, and the faith to believe that even in the mess, even in the unfinished work, even in the attempts that fail, something meaningful is happening, because each act of creation, regardless of the outcome, is a declaration that you are alive, engaged, and daring to leave your mark. And over time, these courageous acts build resilience, teaching you that uncertainty is not an enemy but a companion to growth, that failure is not final but formative, and that the real reward of creating is not in the applause or the recognition, but in the transformation that happens inside of you as you take risks, face fear, and still choose to build. And so courage is never about guaranteeing results. It is about refusing to let fear dictate the story, and instead writing your own with open hands, bold heart, and a willingness to embrace whatever unfolds, knowing that the act of creating itself is already a victory. Boundaries are not walls. They are pathways to self-respect and freedom, because they are not about shutting people out, but about making intentional choices that honor your values, protect your energy, and create space for you to live authentically. And while walls are built from fear and separation, boundaries are built from clarity and love. Love for yourself and love for the kind of relationships and life you want to nurture. And too often boundaries are misunderstood as selfishness, when in truth they are the very opposite, because when you set a boundary, you are not saying, "I don't care about you." You are saying, "I care enough about myself to show up honestly, and I care enough about us to create a space where I can engage without resentment." And this honesty is what makes real connection possible, because without boundaries, relationships become tangled in unspoken expectations, silent frustrations, and sacrifices that slowly erode self-worth. But when you draw lines with intention, you give yourself permission to live in alignment with your truth, and this alignment is where freedom begins, because freedom is not about having no limits at all. It is about living within the limits that reflect your deepest values, limits that free you from people pleasing, overcommitting, or betraying yourself to keep the peace. And while setting boundaries can feel terrifying, especially when you fear rejection or conflict, it is an act of profound courage, because it requires you to stand in your worth and declare that your needs and well-being matter. And every time you do, you strengthen the foundation of self-respect, because respect begins not with how others treat you, but with how you choose to treat yourself. And boundaries are the language of that respect, saying, "This is where I end and you begin," and both of us deserve clarity. And over time, practicing boundaries teaches you to trust yourself, to listen to your own needs, to recognize when you are pouring from an empty cup, and to step back when you need rest. And the freedom this brings is not just external but internal, because you are no longer trapped by guilt or the pressure to prove your worth through endless giving. Instead, you live from a place of wholeness, where generosity is authentic and relationships are healthier because they are built on honesty rather than silent sacrifice. And so boundaries, far from being walls, are bridges to stronger connections, deeper self-trust, and the kind of freedom that allows you to create and sustain a life that is true to who you are. Failure is not a dead end, but a redirection toward alignment, because every time something falls apart, it is not simply evidence that you were wrong or incapable, but an invitation to pause, to listen, and to see where your path may not have been fully aligned with your deepest truth. And though failure often feels final in the moment, it rarely is, because what looks like the end is often the beginning of a truer journey. And while it can be tempting to view failure as proof of inadequacy, the reality is that failure is feedback. It shows us what doesn't fit, what doesn't serve, and what doesn't lead us where we are meant to go. And sometimes it takes losing something we thought we wanted to realize it was never ours to begin with, that we were chasing someone else's definition of success or living under the weight of expectations that didn't match who we are. And failure clears that space, painful as it is, to help us see ourselves more honestly, and in that clearing we are given the chance to realign, to redirect our efforts toward the places, people, and callings that truly match our values. And while the sting of disappointment is real, so too is the possibility embedded within it, because failure is never wasted when we are willing to learn from it, to hold it up to the light and ask, what is this teaching me about where I belong and who I am becoming? And when we shift our perspective this way, failure loses its power to shame us and begins to shape us, showing us resilience, humility, and clarity. And as much as we may crave straight lines and certainty, life is full of detours, and failure is one of the ways those detours appear, guiding us away from what would have diminished us and toward what will sustain us. And the beauty of seeing failure as redirection is that it frees us from the fear of making mistakes, because mistakes no longer mean the end of the road. They mean the road is still unfolding. And if we trust that every wrong turn still leads to growth, then we can move with more courage, knowing that even when we fall, we are not being abandoned but being rerouted. And so failure becomes less of a punishment and more of a teacher, reminding us that our worth is not defined by outcomes but by the willingness to keep moving toward alignment step by step until we are living in a way that feels both true and whole. The life you deserve isn't given, it's built brick by brick with persistence and faith, because anything worth having demands patience, effort, and the courage to believe in a future that isn't visible yet. And though we often wish for quick fixes or sudden breakthroughs, the truth is that lasting fulfillment comes from the slow, steady layering of intentional choices, the kind that seem small in the moment but over time form the foundation of something unshakable. And persistence is what carries us through the seasons when progress feels invisible, when every step forward feels matched by setbacks, and when the temptation to quit whispers louder than the reasons to continue. Yet each act of persistence plants a seed of resilience, proving that our commitment is stronger than the obstacles in front of us. And faith is the vision that keeps us moving through uncertainty, the quiet belief that our work matters even when no results can be seen, the trust that the bricks we lay today will someday reveal a structure worthy of our effort. And together, persistence and faith form a partnership that holds us steady, persistence giving us the grit to keep going, and faith reminding us why it's worth it. And though the process may feel slow, the power of building brick by brick is that nothing is wasted. Every failure becomes a lesson. Every stumble becomes part of the design. Every moment of effort adds weight to the foundation. And eventually what once felt impossible begins to rise before our eyes, not as a gift handed to us, but as a life we created through resilience, patience, and belief. And this is what makes it so valuable, because the life you deserve cannot be taken from you when it has been earned through your own persistence and faith. And when you look back, you'll see not a single moment of sudden luck, but a tapestry woven by countless choices, a life that reflects not only what you wanted, but who you became in the process of building it.